Hi, Demi, and hi, Kelly. Um, I'm Deirdre. I think we've met before anyway, Demi.
Yeah.
And I think I can't remember, Kelly, if we've met, but it's lovely to have you here this afternoon. I don't know how many we're going to have. It can vary. Sometimes we've good attendance, and hi, Samantha, you're very welcome. It's just and okay, and Chigozi. So there's a good few of you coming in. That's wonderful. We'll give a few minutes so that people can get online and get organized, and we'll start in a couple of minutes. But while we're waiting, if anybody has any particular questions or anything, just we'll be happy to take them at the end. And we'll also, there's a chat function here, so you can put your questions into the chat. And if I don't respond immediately, my colleague Sophia will alert me and will respond to you either during the session or at the end. And also you can kind of put your hand up again. If I'm don't pick it up, Sophia's here to remind me. So but before we start, does anyone have anything in particular they have a question about?
Um, I'd like to ask if I may. Can you hear me?
I can, Samantha, yes.
Um, One of the things, because I haven't done anything at this level for 20 years, is the amount of reading or the amount of potential reading. How much do are we should we be doing in order to really succeed? I mean, clearly all the core reading, all the actual the
Well,
use.
actually, it's sort of we recommend that you read judiciously. So if we recommend a book, it is not expected that you read something from cover to cover.
No.
Okay. So you read selectively and with a purpose. So if you're looking at sort of unit one of inclusion, say, for example, that has a lot of information around the origins of inclusion as a movement. It has articles. So if I were preparing for an assignment on inclusion, which is going to need me to have a kind of a good framework in my head for understanding the provenance of inclusion, where it has come from,
Yeah.
where it is now, and where it's going to. And the overall political context and educational context, social and the sort of the whole legislative and policy context, I would be looking for a good I would be reading the unit content. And
Yeah.
then I would be looking at some of the core readings. I'd be dipping into them. I'd take notes as I was reading them. And I have these little legal post-its. Do you know them? Right. So if I print something off, I mark it with this. Or you can use an electronic highlighter. I mark and highlight what I think will be useful or helpful or is interesting to me as I go through it. So I'm saying read with a purpose, mark and annotate, take some notes, because the more channels it goes in, the more likely it is to stick. But one of the things I will tell you is that a really good source is what you call a review article. Okay. So if you want to read about Salamanca or the inclusive education movement, reading something which is about, Salamanca 20 years on, or or a review article which looks at, if you're doing a module on dyslexia, a review article which reviews all the most effective strategies for comprehension, for example. So a review article is a very useful creature because what it does is it gathers together all the most recent and up-to-date literature in one sort of compact space for you.
Yeah.
So I'd be saying, so find something which sort of covers multiple things at the one time, but your tutors will give you guidance on this as well. So if you say, look, which out of these is most relevant to me, you know, or what would you suggest? So we have tried to be quite judicious and selective, but we're aware that people are coming from different backgrounds, Samantha. So, You know, sometimes if I'm in an early year setting, I might want to have such a slightly different emphasis than if I'm working at second level. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
But I did have a student who worked right through every single thing on the reading list. And unfortunately, I didn't catch her in time, not on this course, but on a different one. And that's not what we're intending you to
Oh
do.
my goodness, yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
no, that's not what's intended. Judicious, selective reading, reading with a purpose. So, after a couple, so for first of all, take a little bit of ease and gently get yourself into the groove. Read a few things, and then you can up it a little bit. You know, have a look then at the assignment brief and see what that's demanding of you. So, you know, we're not, if you were to be spending 2 to 3 evenings a week reading and preparing and studying, that's really good. Do you know, that's what we've been expecting? Then when it comes to writing your assignment, depending upon if you're a really slow writer like me, or faster like some of my colleagues, you know, it'll vary.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an awful one for taking my time and overthinking things, you know. So, but that's why we scaffold you very well. The assignment brief is really designed on every one of the modules to answer a lot of the questions about what's expected. We have designed them specifically to do that, Samantha. So I hope that's helpful.
It is very, thank you. And it makes me feel a lot better because I was thinking, I just can't do all this.
No, no,
Don't have
no.
enough hours in the day. But
No, and I
you
mean,
can just
I remember this poor panicked student. So actually, Sophia, will you put that up there? Will you come up with the language, put English on it for me? We have to put something up beside the reading list to say that this is not, you know, you are not expected to read to explore this reading list in its totality, that it is meant to be, you know, about judicious and selective reading.
Thank you very much.
So we will do that now that you've reminded me. Okay, it's great to see you all here this evening, and a few more might join us, but you know, it's great to see those of you that did make it here this evening. And for those who haven't, because several people gave their apologies and weren't able to make it because of other commitments, this session is being recorded. So, and the idea of this session really is to help you to get the most out of your studies, really, to give you a few pointers. There will be a follow-up session with my colleague, Johannes Miranda, who's an academic writing tutor at UEL. And Johannes is absolutely excellent at, you know, giving very precise, specific, detailed advice and instruction on you know, critical analysis, referencing, and the nuts and bolts of actually academic writing. But my session today is a bit more general. So I'm here ably assisted by my colleague Sophia, and some of you already know me. I am the academic advisor for the Master's and postgraduate diploma in special and additional learning needs with our collaborative partner UEL. So this is what we're hoping to cover briefly, just to talk to you about getting the most out of your module, some tips for your learning activities, which are kind of designed to scaffold you towards meeting the learning outcomes for the module as a whole, then some advice on the assignment, a little bit about academic integrity and referencing, some stuff about the library and support information, and then we're going to talk to you about your involvement in evaluation and teaching and learning and student representation as an option, and take any questions. So really, in terms of getting the most out of your module, the most important thing is, first of all, to make sure that you're familiar with all of the resources and supports that we have put in place to support you. You can find information and advice on these mostly on your homepage. So there's a huge amount there just get in, and most of you will have already done this at this stage, but continue to familiarize yourself with Moodle. Read all of the support documentation, read the handbooks, read the module guide, have a look at any of the support videos which show you about, Turnitin, your submission of your essay, and all of the different things that you're going to have to do later on. Log in to the library as soon as you can and get familiar with how to search. Having said that, we have taken steps now to make sure we've worked very closely with Win Pang, who is very approachable, and she is the librarian for the program. And we've worked very closely with her to link all of the key readings directly within Moodle, so you shouldn't have any difficulty accessing those. Engage with your tutor and your classmates. Really, one of the ways that online learning is made, sort of how we take the distance out of distance learning, if you like, is through the kind of engagement that the online learning and the forums actually allow for. So there's a number of different discussion forums there, and there's a space for you to go in and say hello to your classmates. You can also email them directly within the system, communicate with them individually. You can communicate with your tutor and ask for if you have a specific question or query. But really, it's quite valuable for you to ask that with in the general forums. If you have a query, ask them in such a way as other people will learn too, because generally speaking, you'll find that not only do you have a particular question, but your colleagues, your students, classmates will have that as well. Read the module guide and participant handbook. It's very important that you're clear on the expectations of the module and that you look at the details of the assignment and what's expected. That's in the handbook, it's in the module guide, it's also up there separately. You'll find the module, the assignment brief and all the information. And remember that your assignment comes in 2 parts, so be sure to engage with both bits. Contribute to the discussions and learning, because this is how you'll get the most out of the module. Get reading, researching, and reflecting. So it's not just about absorbing a huge amount of information. It's really what we're interested in is what you think about what you're learning. We're interested in not just getting this information or the learning that we give you back, but that through the filter, through the lens of your experience, your critical thought, your analysis, your evaluation. Now, you need to do that now, not just off the top of your head, but through the prism of your learning. So we want you to think about inclusion or dyslexia or the practice in your school in the light of what you've learned about good and effective practice, in the light of the research. So it is about a kind of a critical analysis, critical thinking. So if you think about Bloom's taxonomy and the sort of different levels, at a master's level, that's what we're expecting. We're expecting that higher order thinking and analysis, not just description, not just explanation, but much more kind of robust, analytic, and sort of the ability to take different arguments, evaluate them, and come up with a proper synthesis and conclusion. And you need to be kind of persuasive as well. So one of the key things here in terms of, and Samantha, I suppose you alluded to it when you said there wasn't enough time in the day if you were going to be reading all that. The issue comes up of planning your study and your assignment. So work backwards from the assignment date and put in place the dedicated time and hours that you're going to need to do it. Ring fence that time, shut the door, get someone else to mind the babes or the cat or the dog or whatever, and just give yourself the best chance. Know the critical dates and deadlines so they don't sneak up on you, and then you won't go too far wrong. The online activities include kind of reading, reflecting, posting, and commenting on other people's contributions. And while you're not graded on completing on these learning activities, this is really about formative assessment. So your tutor will comment on your contribution, maybe not on every one of them, but on some of your contributions, and will give you guidance. And this is an opportunity for you to develop your skills for your written assignment, to practice the kind of thinking, the kind of research, the kinds of arguments, the kinds of reflection that you'll need to demonstrate in your assignment. And what we expect here is that you show us that you're understanding the content, that you write in a clear and communicate in a clear and concise kind of way, and that you show us your ability to analyze, critique, and offer solutions. And also, we want to see you being collegiate, responding in a supportive way, and sharing your insights, sharing your experience with other students. So those are the kind of expectations or tips for the discussions and your completion of the learning activities within those. Just to clarify, within each module, there are 8 learning activities, 2 per unit. Many of you have already gotten going on them. And they're a great way for you to communicate and share what you've learned, and also for your tutors to track and check and monitor your progress through the course. So as I said, even though you're not marked on them, it's integral that you complete them properly in order to prepare yourself for the final assignment and in order to gain the most out of the module, because they're carefully selected and chosen to scaffold you towards your final assignment. So complete them as you go through the module. Sometimes people leave them and then they try and go back and complete them at the end. At that point, you're out of the rhythm. So we would say ideally try to complete the 2, for unit 1 and the 2 for unit 2 as you're working through that module rather than weeks later. So it's a really important thing to kind of keep the momentum going of the group discussion. So we would call on you to kind of keep up with them and to recognize the importance of them. There's also plenty of opportunity here to ask your tutor for guidance or to share any questions. So if you don't know, please ask, and you won't be left wondering. We'll move on now next to the assignment. And the main way of assessment, as you know, the main way we have of assessing your knowledge and learning is through the written assignment for each module. We, on this course, have taken a particular approach, which is kind of designed to help you get familiar, and so that with each module you'll gain experience and become more familiar. So we've used a fairly consistent kind of assessment approach across all the modules. So essentially what it is it's a 5,000 word written piece, but it's a portfolio. And what portfolio means is that there's 2 pieces to it. So the first part tends to be more theoretical, or and about maybe the policy and legislation. The second part is more applied and practical and about implementing what you've learned. So that's kind of the way that they're structured across each one of the modules. Even knowing that may help you. As I said, the expectation is that you start planning for this fairly, maybe a few weeks out in advance, to give yourself the best chance. And as I said earlier, reading with a purpose, reading judiciously. If you have awareness and have looked at the assignment brief, then when you're doing your reading, you can sort of be taking notes and say, right, that'll be useful when I come to write that section. That might be useful for that section of my assignment. So you're collecting evidence and material and resources as you go. So just a couple of things. 50% is a pass Oftentimes people think 40% is a pass, so it's quite a high standard, but we have mostly very few fails. So just to reassure you, a distinction is 70% and a merit is between 60 and 69. And as I said, below 50% is a fail. Now, before you begin your assignment, the most important thing is that you clarify the task, clarify the expectations, and look in detail at the assignment brief and what's expected. How can you meet the assessment criteria? Read all the guidance, read all the learning outcomes, and if in doubt, ask. Now, we've done it out in a great deal of detail. So what we have done is we've mentioned in the rubric at the end of the assignment brief exactly what exactly the assessment criteria and how you can evidence that you have met each one of the learning outcomes as you move through the assignment. So there is a suggested structure for each part of the assignment. And what I will say to you is, if you stick fairly close to that, now you can depart from it. It's a guidance, it's a suggested structure, it's not a mandatory structure. You can depart from it, but sticking closely to it is your best chance of success, really. It helps make sure that you don't go too far off track. There's plenty of guidance up on Moodle and available from the tutors. So the learning outcomes are very important. People think that we're used to, I suppose, in school or in college long ago, you just got a title and you wrote to the title. Now you'll get a title, but the task here is not just to write to the title. The task is to make sure that you're demonstrating that you have met all of the learning outcomes. So if the learning outcomes say that you have to draw on recent relevant literature, you have to draw on recent relevant literature. If the learning outcomes have to say that you have to show an awareness or knowledge or critically analyze current interventions for dyslexia, well, then that's what you have to demonstrate in your essay. So do you get me? It's not just writing to the title, it's demonstrating that you have met the learning outcomes for that part of your assignment. And this is what we want you to show, that you have a systematic understanding, not a scattergun understanding, not an off the top of your head understanding, not a cursory one, a systematic understanding. And that means that there's kind of a logic to it, there's a shape to it, and that you have critical awareness, that you're able to tease things apart and put them together again, that you're able to sort of say, this is the why of why I've chosen this intervention. Here's the evidence for its effectiveness. There are counter arguments to it, but it has to be kind of a robust piece of writing. And you have to demonstrate to us, one way I explain it to people is, if you're making an argument, which is what you're essentially doing when you're writing a piece of academic writing, I need you to think like you're in a court of law. It's not just enough to say such and such is the case. You've got to show me why. So, you're rumpole of the Bailey while you're writing these papers. You've got to think in terms of giving me the evidence, making the argument, defeating the opposition. So you've got to actually make it very clear why you're saying what you're saying. Now you can look at the counter argument. So give one argument, give the other side, and then tell me why you're coming down on this side. So plan your research, read the content, and remember, I suppose, in terms of sources, I mentioned how review articles are a fantastic source. That I can't, or meta-analysis, because review articles and meta-analysis, that's a type of study where they aggregate all the findings. So recent policy documents can also be excellent as well. So either UK or English or Irish, recent policy documents, they're excellent sometimes because they'll sort of often incorporate a review of best practice, say for teaching and learning in autism or for, positive behavior support or whatever. So it's just knowing what sort of sources will give you really good value for your time and effort is part of studying smart. In terms of writing your essay, there's a couple of key pointers. Remember that there's plenty of guidance up there in Moodle. Also remember that your tutor will give you guidance and is happy to answer any questions that you might have. There are a few things that people let people down a lot. One of them is not paying enough attention to sort of presentation, to using headers, subheaders, guiding and signposting the reader through your essay so that it's apparent that you have a logical structure. Also, it's really important that you get familiar with referencing and how to follow the Harvard referencing style. Again, lots of information up in Moodle, videos, and UEL resources such as Cite and Write will help you there. Another issue that sometimes people come a cropper with is over quoting or overusing one particular source. It's what we call source dependency. While you can quote the unit content, once or twice, over quoting from one particular source suggests laziness. So it's just a really good idea not to rely on just one or two sources, but to spread your sources to demonstrate a breadth of reading and wide research. That's quite important. So don't overquote from one source or overuse the module content. The main issue, though, is the level of argument, the level of critical analysis. Remember, it needs to be at master's level. It needs to meet the academic standard expected at master's level. Demonstrate that you've met the learning outcomes and that you have reflected on the module content and integrated it with your own learning and practice and experience. So it's not giving back information, it's making it your own. So that's the critical thing. And also that it's sort of, one way I talk about it is that it's kind of has to be a sort of muscular level of argument. We have to really see that you're engaging with it, that there's a little bit of deep thought and analysis and effort gone into it. Having said that, we have done our best here, guys, to make it very clear. So use the assignment briefs as a map, okay? We've set out the steps, we've given you a scaffold, and we would say, feel free, just use that and you won't go too far wrong. So getting into writing the assignment, then planning the essay outline. As I say, I can't emphasize enough the fact that the suggested structure will allow you to kind of stay on track without too much trouble. Develop an overall argument and sort of plan your the journey of your essay. Group your ideas into themes and then into paragraphs. Organize your argument logically, provide signposts, explanations, use headers, and critically evaluate and evidence all your ideas. Support your conclusions. Remember, rumpole of the Bailey, you are making an argument, you're setting out your stall, you have to evidence your ideas. Okay, the basic mistakes, just to go over them: referencing errors, presentation, unsupported lines of argument, saying something just because, we all know that, children who aren't reading by the age of 7 have dyslexia. Well, no, we don't. And how would you know it? And, so you can't make unsubstantiated claims. You have to actually back up anything that you're saying with evidence, with a source. So the other, if you go off point, then that's another way of kind of losing the thread. And kind of, some people will drift. So they'll start off writing the essay and be on point, and then suddenly it's a whole other topic they're discussing. You've got to stay focused. You got to stay on task. You got to keep on point in terms of your topic and your argument. So, and otherwise you're just not going to meet the brief. You're not going to fulfill the learning outcomes. One way of distinguishing MA level from maybe, you know, BA level writing is that when you're doing your initial degree, being descriptive is okay. When you're doing this, it's really, you're not going to get away. So say you're doing something on, I don't know what, a particular approach to maybe you're doing social stories and you're going to describe it. What will not wash is a huge amount, taking up a huge amount of space in your assignment describing social stories. Nah, that's not, I can go to the internet and get that. I can open any book and get that. What I want to know is not, so the descriptive piece, the explanatory piece should be small. What is more interesting and more to the point is, does it work? Why does it work? What's the thinking behind it? What are the counter arguments? Are there issues with it? How are they bringing social stories into the 21st century? You know, a colleague, a young teacher I work with is using ChatGPT to generate social stories. So I'm interested in your experience of social stories. I'm interested in what you've gone and found out in the literature about social stories. We don't want an ABC of social stories. So if it's purely descriptive, that is not master's level. Okay. Structuring the work is very important, as I said, using the scaffold of suggested headings as a frame, headings and subheadings. Remember to have an introduction and a conclusion. Always write the introduction last is a good way of thinking about it, because that'll help you sort of say what you're going to say. Sometimes people work in different ways, but sometimes having a plan and starting off with a Word doc with all the headers so that you have a structure, and then writing into those headers is a good way of getting started. Then you can develop notes for each section, group your ideas, and then go from that into fully fledged paragraphs. Make sure, I can't emphasize enough, connecting what you have learnt with key literature to support your ideas and evidencing your lines of argument. And this should be also include some references which are, you know, from your key texts and recommended readings. Right. In terms of writing style, you can use the first person when you're writing about your own practice. However, when you're writing about the literature, there's, you know, generally people advise depersonalizing your writing. For example, you'd say, overall, the arguments put forward by Blatchford et al. 2014 appear to be well supported by the research, for example, by blah, de blah. Or you can use phrases such as, I would argue that, but rather than I think or I feel. So remember, it's not about thinking or feeling, it's about making a reasoned argument. That's what you're at. And the difference between I think or I feel and I would argue is that if you use the term I would argue or I would contend, it suggests an evidence base, and then you come in behind I would contend or I would argue because. So and then you present your argument. So you're not going to present anything in the essay that isn't backed up by evidence from reading or from your own data collection. If you say something that's purely opinion, then you need to make it clear so that the reader knows that you don't have evidence to support what you're saying. And so, for example, you can use your own experience. You can say, in my experience, children who have difficulty with nursery rhymes or with whatever often turn out to have dyslexia. You know, this is something I've observed in my classroom, that, you know, children who have difficulty with language, for example, have a higher risk of, you know, having reading difficulties later on. And then I might say, and this is something which actually is supported in the literature by such and such a study, you know. So you can quote your own experience, that's valid, but you need to make sure that you're specifying, this is my experience. And ideally, you should be connecting it to literature or to research to give validity and weight to your experience. Okay, right. Okay, then in terms of editing, we would say just draft, redraft. It's worth spending the time tidying it, getting it right. If you have a critical friend who can help with or advise you, or if you can help each other, you can also ask the tutor. Some tutors take drafts, but you need to just check with them whether they will and get the timing of that, because too close to the assignment and that's not a runner. But often tutors will have no issue taking a sample of your writing and giving you feedback on that, and then you know whether you're on the right track, or they'll look at an outline of your essay plan, also very useful. But as I say, check the dates with your tutors because those will vary. These other resources are really helpful, and you'll get a copy of this. This PowerPoint will be sent to you, so don't worry. And these resources are also referenced up in Moodle and on your homepage. So the Manchester University Academic Phrase Bank is an absolute classic, really helpful for just giving you those academic sound bites and turn of phrase. And that other, there's a couple, I like that one. I think that one, ed.ac, I think that's from Edinburgh University. It's a particular one I like. And then there's other resources there by the UEL academic tutors. So other resources as well are available from the academic tutors at UEL, and they offer study skills, interactive workshops, drop-in sessions. And for more information on these, you can set up an individual session and book an individual session with them. If you have a particular issue, say around critical analysis or referencing, or maybe you've done a previous assignment and your tutor has sort of highlighted something, you want particular help with something, that's an ideal reason to book a session. But they're there to help and very willing. Okay. In terms of academic integrity then and referencing, this is mission critical. So sometimes people think that it's really important just to be so careful about unintended plagiarism. It can be that you've cut and paste stuff from the internet as you were going, and then you forget where you got it, and all of a sudden it's in your essay. That's not going to fly, because when it's going to show up and turn it in. So one of the things we would say is always check. Ideally, if you're a little bit ahead of the posse, you're going to have time, build in a little bit of a buffer zone so that you can have time to check your similarity score in Turnitin. That will allow you to fix anything that isn't properly referenced. So academic integrity is so important, really important, to be respectful of the work of other people and give and cite them and all of your sources accurately. And it's really important to avoid breaching academic regulations, because if you breach academic regulations, you fail your assignment, and then there may be serious sort of disciplinary consequences. Usually, poor academic contact, is a minor breach or an unintended breach of academic regulations, integrity regulations. And this can be about incomplete references, incorrect citations, over reliance on sources, too many direct quotes. Forgot to say actually that big chunks of other people's texts, rather than paraphrasing or putting it in your own words, is also seen as kind of intellectually a little bit lazy. So these shortcuts are not really shortcuts. So what we do expect at master's level is that you'll take, you know, an idea or a concept, and you'll put it into your own words to avoid plagiarizing. If you're going to quote something, it should be for a real purpose and because there's a real value add to quoting it and not putting it in your own words. You shouldn't have maybe more than, you know, 5, 6, or 8 max quotations per assignment. I would be keeping them short. Sometimes you quote a definition, and that can be, you know, useful because, you know, there are specific aspects of it that you're going to pull apart and analyze, but be very selective about using quotes, and certainly don't use big chunks, and learn how to paraphrase. So plagiarism is when you have unattributed information copied from other sources, missing citations, inadequate paraphrasing, and using work submitted elsewhere. Sometimes people, well, one of the things I didn't realize actually until I became involved in academic teaching and learning was that um, that you can plagiarize yourself. So you can't take a piece of work submitted for a previous, you know, on an academic course and then use that again for another paper. So just to be aware, self-plagiarism is a thing. I didn't realize it was. So you have to kind of rewrite it, put it in different words. Practice referencing, check and cross-check. There's cite and write, and then there's log in through UL using your username and password. And you can also see there's a YouTube guide on how to use cite and write. So there's lots of resources up in Moodle, and also, you know, depending upon your own setup on your computer, you can, you know, even get Word or whatever. There are all sorts of shortcuts now to referencing as you go, and that's one of the things that Johannes will be explaining and giving advice on the next session. In terms of the presentation of your assignment, these are just, this guidance is here. This is really about formatting and presentation. The key thing is, a key issue actually is the word count. So while you can go a little bit over the word count, and we won't, the references don't count, and your front sheet doesn't count, and large and quotations don't count. We just say overall each section should be around 2,500 words, 5,000 words in total, and there is a leeway of plus or minus 10%. But if you go over that, the tutor is likely to stop marking when you reach that word count. So you're not going to get the full benefit of all the work you've put in. So it's important to stick to the word count. It's also a discipline in terms of writing and communication and effective expression of your ideas. Carefully spell check and proofread. Sometimes things are not well edited at the end or not well proofed, and sometimes it's very apparent that someone has just run out of time. We get that, but it's worth kind of taking a little bit of time towards the end, putting it through Turnitin if you can, and spending that time tidying it up, proofing it, editing it, and as I say, putting it through Turnitin 24 hours or whatever in advance of submission will catch any issues with high similarity scores. Okay, these are 2 resources here for the library. That's a YouTube video for UEL about the UEL library, and that's Win Pang. She is the course librarian whom you can email if you're looking for a specific resource, and she's really hugely helpful. And then in terms of how we support you, here's all the different layers of support available to you. There's myself and Sophia and the rest of the academic advisory team here to answer any questions that you might have, really around general academic advice. If, for instance, you wanted to book a session at some stage to discuss module choices, or moving on to the masters or whatever, I'm also here for that. Administrative support, that's Antoinette, and she's also available to you around any issues that you might have around admin. And then IT support, the UEL IT desk and the student hub. But for most issues, your first and direct line of contact should be your tutor. So your tutor is there. They will support you. They will answer your questions. They will give you advice on the module content and on your assignment. So they're your first line resource and source of help and advice. Then we are keen always to hear your voice. There is, I think, you know, because your feedback will help us improve teaching and learning. There is a midpoint survey, which will be emailed out to all of you, and we'd be very interested to hear your experiences and feedback and suggestions for improving the course. And also, we're always interested in recruiting student reps for the program. It's not too onerous a job. You're the person who collects feedback from your classmates, and you'll be attending 2 to 3 meetings a year to share that feedback, and also to feedback to your students what's been done with their feedback from the previous term. So that's the kind of role that it is. So if anyone is interested in being a student rep, we'd love to hear from you, and you can email that email address there, academicadvisor@icepi.eu, if you are interested. And I think that's it, apart from your questions. So happy to take any questions that you might have now at this stage. Hi, Nadia, you have a question.
Hi, ma'am. I have a question. Thanks for all this presentation, and it's quite helpful in perspective of the assignment. My question is actually related to right now I am in the dyslexia module, and I have resumed my studies like after a long gap. I have already done a master's in human development, and now I have resumed my studies like after 15 years or so. I'm not in a professional studies. I'm in professional environment. I'm not teaching right now in any organization or institute, because I just wanted to top up my knowledge as well. So right now the situation is I read the theory, but the problem is that when they ask it at the end, reflect in your setting, reflect in your professional setting, or in any learning activity, it's been asked, how do you propose, what strategies being, what kind of assessment tools are applied in your school or organization. I really don't.
Nadia, that's
You
totally
suggest-
understandable. So what
Yeah, I'm so
is
sorry.
that your issue, that you don't know how to make these fit your experience?
Yes, because I don't know, is it going to impact my assignment or not, because I haven't started the assignment yet. But I'm a bit worried that it's going to cost me my assignment as well, or something.
No. So I would say to you, first of all, just ask Shannon for a little bit of input. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, I have, we have, put up a meeting, in the upcoming days. I'm going to have a call with her as well. She's being supportive. So she said that we haven't have a call yet, but in the upcoming days, we intend to have one.
Well, I can't predict what Shannon would say, but you can share what I say with her.
Sure.
And I would say to you that the expectation is that if you're not in a school setting, that you would maybe look at your national setting or context, okay? So, and I don't know, where are you based, Nadia?
Actually, I am right now in Switzerland, Geneva.
Yeah.
And I have studied my whole studies in Pakistan.
Okay.
So in
That's
Geneva,
a
it's new for me. It's like 2 years. I am here with my family. So currently, I really am not. I don't know much of what kind of setting is in the schools over here.
But are you familiar with, so are you familiar with what would have been available in terms of dyslexia support or learning supports in schools in Pakistan, just even in a general way?
Yeah, a little bit. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
So,
I propose, I mean, I intend when I be visiting my country in summer, I really want to have a short internship or something in some kind of institute, but it's in summers. I'm
but
right now, what I'm concerned is my assignment.
no. It will be okay because for you, it's going to be more theoretical. Okay. So that's all. You won't be able to have a hands-on sort of that experience, but you can still speak about the different contexts that you have knowledge of, and you can research and look comparatively at, what exists in Switzerland and what exists in Pakistan. They're very distinct settings. And I imagine that there's even a great deal of variation in Pakistan if you look at what's available in maybe private schools and public schools. How recognized is dyslexia there? What level of teacher training is there? Is there any literature about dyslexia in Pakistan? So you could make, do you know what I'm saying? But if you have a chat with Shannon, she will guide you because you're not unique, Nadia. Most people are in a school or classroom or working as educators, but not everybody. And that's okay because we think that, you bring a distinct perspective and experience, and you will still be able to use this learning in the future. Do you know? So she will help you adapt, guide you in terms of the learning activities and also in terms of your assignment. She'll give you very practical pointers.
I'm
So
looking forward
don't
to that.
worry. Don't
Thank you so
worry.
much. Thanks for your advice. Thank you so much.
No problem, Nadia. I'm happy to take any other queries or questions that any of you might have. We will be sending out, you'll all receive a link to the recording of this session. You'll also receive, the PowerPoint, and you'll also receive in the next couple of weeks, or maybe, I'm not sure if the date is already set, Sophia, but we are shortly to confirm the date for the session with the academic writing advisor, that is Johannes.
That's on Wednesday, the 27th, so just over a week away.
Great. So that is a session I would highly recommend that you attend, because particularly if you have answers around or questions around, referencing, and he's very, very helpful too in terms of explaining how you build an argument, how you sort of have a consistent line of argument and narrative thread through your essay, giving it coherence so that it all hangs together. So the other thing is, I think there are exemplars. Sophia, there are exemplar essays up there, aren't there, in most of the modules?
Yes, that's correct. Every module should have maybe 2 exemplars, I think, of work that has previously, is a sample assignment to give people an idea of the standard that's expected.
And I think the ones that are up there are usually, the ones that are selected are usually distinction level, so there'd be a fairly high standard. The majority of people on the module get somewhere between a 50 and a 70. So that's the majority fall in there. A good chunk of people get in the 60s, but if you don't, so what I would say to you is, if this is your first module, and depending upon your academic background and where you've come from, people sometimes get disappointed if they don't get a distinction. Not everybody gets a distinction. There's a kind of, you know, that's a very, very high and exceptional grade, just to say it to you. So I'm just saying this to you so that your expectations are in line with what's likely to happen and that you don't get disappointed. So what we say is that even getting a pass or a merit on your module is a really hell of an achievement, because we acknowledge the fact that we're all, you know, you're all adult learners. You've all got multiple responsibilities. Hi, Demi, you've a question there.
I'm sorry, Deirdre, I didn't want to interrupt you. I don't have a question, just a remark to Nadia's anguish. just to tell her that I'm in a similar situation with her, and that my first module felt a little bit scary and difficult, but it got easier along the way, and I found creative ways and through the support of the tutors to manage all my modules, and the last one even helped me to get a job. So
oh, that's lovely to hear, Demi. That's mighty.
Not to give up, and not to be anxious, and get help from the tutor, and be creative, and it will be okay. Just wanted to let her know. She said just before doing now the dissertation module. But I'm looking forward to it.
My God,
I'm not anxious anymore, and that's the thing, that I'm enjoying it and I feel really positive about it. So just a little bit of feedback.
Thank you so much.
And thank
Demi.
you for your presentation.
Thank you so much, Demi. Ashley, you have something you'd like to share?
Yes, this is my first module, so I am quite nervous, especially for the final assignment, but positive feedback from a lot of people, so I'm happy to hear that. Further, I'm doing the autism module right now, and a resource list was given of all the materials, so journals, books, online resources. For the final assignment, should we stick to those resources,
No.
or can we find other resources as well?
Oh, yeah, please do. And also, Gillian is great. So talk to Gillian, email her. And like, Gillian has a wide range. She's a practitioner, like most of our tutors. She's very steeped in the day-to-day of working with families and children and young people with autism. So there's lots of resources out there, but be careful. So
Yes.
certain sources come with a health warning. If it's, you know, peer-reviewed journals, professional websites, know where you're getting your information. So websites are a little bit, so the
Yes.
internet, just be very careful, Ashley. And then you can also always say to Gillian, what do you think of this? Or you could ask her if you weren't sure, but generally you'll have the skill after a little while of discerning, is this a scientific publication? Is this reliable? Are they citing references themselves for their sources, or are they making it up as they go along? So yeah, as long as you're selective and judicious in the sources that you use, of course your tutor will welcome you reading beyond the suggested reading list. Sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I think we're nearly at 5:30 here in Ireland, and I know you guys are all over. Where are you all from? I'm just interested to see. So we have Nadia in Switzerland. Where are you all based? I'd love to know where you're all talking to us from.
So I'm in Spain at the moment, and I'll be going to Ivory Coast in August.
That's so cool. Is it warm in Spain now, Samantha?
At the moment where we are, we're up a mountain, so it can get very cold, but this last week has been absolutely delightful. Warm evenings. We're currently clearing a fire break, which is a little different. And so it's been quite nice to work outside in the sunshine, but not too hot.
Oh, I just see, that's wonderful. I see Kelly is in South Africa and Demi is in Luxembourg and then Ashley is in Canada. So that's so cool. It's just lovely. I think it's nice to get a sense of of our distribution and how, because there is one of the reasons that we developed this program was to bring educators together from all sorts of different international perspectives. And I think that our different experiences really enrich each other, but it's just wonderful to see the diversity too. Thank you so much. As I say, myself and Sophia are here to support you as the part of the academic advisory team as you go through your studies. Don't be stuck. If you want to book an individual session, if you're worried or panicked, just do that. Reach out at any point and I'd be happy to chat with you. Also, your tutors, as I say, are very supportive, very approachable. And if you need it, they will arrange to have an individual Zoom call or chat with you at any stage. Okay. So I think if there aren't any other questions, all that remains for me now is to say thank you very much and just wish you all the best in your studies and may the wind be in your sails, as they say here, this part of the world. Thank you so much, everybody. And so the best of luck with the studies. And as I say, we're here for you if you should need us at any point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deirdre. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Hi, Sophia.